In this video, I'm going to show you guys how to replace your radiator in your Subaru Forester. It's located inside the engine compartment near the front. Before we remove these lines, make sure you take your vehicle to a local repair shop to discharge the AC system. Take your negative battery terminal off. Use a 10mm wrench. I am going to take out these plastic fasteners first to disconnect the grill. For these, you gotta get your trim tool in there and pop that up, and then it'll come out. Next, you're going to take these out on the corners. All right, now you got to remove these. So remove these clips also. All right, so once you remove these, and slide that out. Now you're going to use a 10mm socket. And remove this cover. Once you remove that bolt, you can pull that out. So in order to get this coolant reservoir out, you're going to pinch this bracket in and use something to pry this away. You're going to disconnect your hose and then pick this up. All right, we're going to use a 12mm. We are going to remove these 4 main bolts. So now we are going to remove all right, and then you're going to go to the other side and do the same. All right, so now there's one more on this side and same on the other side. Once you get this out, make sure you have a hand on it because it will come down. All right, so now we're going to drain our coolant out of the radiator by removing our petcock. So you're just going to use a Phillips screwdriver. And unscrew this. Just be ready to catch the coolant with a drain bucket. All right, so now we're going to put our petcock back in now that we've drained the radiator. All right, so now you're going to disconnect your radiator hose. Usually pull the clamp up the hose, take a pair of pliers, twist the hose a little bit, make it free. There may still be some coolant in this hose, so just be mindful as you take it off, not to get yourself covered in coolant. Once the stream slows down, you can then remove the hose. Obviously, keep your drain bucket handy. All right, so now we're gonna take off our hose. I'm gonna crack loose the hose first, remove it. And just put that over there out of the way. Okay, we're gonna use a 12mm socket. We're gonna take out these bolts on either side to remove the radiator and condenser and fan all at the same time. That is the easiest way to do this. Now we can take our brackets off. All right, so at this point, we just want to make some space so we can disconnect some things. I'm going to take this out. You may need to move your hose if you don't have enough space. I'm going to use a 10mm to take off these AC lines. Now you're going to get the lower line. If you are only replacing one part, be very careful you don't dent the fins on the radiator or the condenser. All right, so I'm going to shimmy a little screwdriver in there. There's like a little O-ring in there, so just ease around, separating it gently. Now we're going to move to this top line and do the same. We are going to disconnect our fan connectors. There's one on this side and there's one on the other side as well. And we're going to do the same on this side. Push that tab in and pull. Now we are ready to take out the entire assembly. All right, so here we are. We have our condenser and radiator out all together. I have 4 bolts that we have to take out. One has already broken off because our situation is pretty rusty. So at this point, I believe we're all hoping that these bolts all break off because we're going to be sourcing new bolts. Hopefully yours isn't like this at home and you can just reuse your bolts. You're going to want to use a 10mm socket. All right, so I've removed all our bolts. Actually, all our bolts broke off as predicted. So now I'm going to remove my condenser. So now I've flipped it over and I'm going to remove our fans. Use a 10mm socket. All right, so I had to get creative. I had to get a flathead screwdriver jammed up against the square nut and then hold my bracket together of my radiator with my locking pliers. Hopefully that holds everything together just enough to get this bolt out. All right. All right, so that side's free. Now we're gonna go to our next one. Once we get all our 4 bolts out, we can now take the fans off. There's 1. And 2. Okay, you're going to put your fans on your new radiator. Slide it into its little bracket and get your bolts ready. Do the same. And you're going to snug them down. All right, so now we are going to flip it over on our cardboard. All right, so we're going to put our condenser on top. Make sure that your little hook shot brackets are on the top. And these line up with the bottom holes. You also want to make sure your lines are on the right side. That's how you know it's on correctly. So these plugs will pull out before we install our AC lines. All right, so now I have new bolts. Since our old ones were super rusty. All right, and our last bolt. Okay, so now we can snug these up with a 10mm. Now we're going to put our radiator, condenser, fan assembly back in the vehicle. You're aiming for those rubber grommets at the bottom. If you do not see rubber grommets, they came out with the old radiator. You might want to retrieve those. Put them back in the car before you do this. All right, so I'm going to rest this here. And I'm going to get ready to put my lines in my condenser. So now we're going to put our line in the condenser. All right, once you get it in, you're going to put your bolt in and tighten it down. So you're going to use a 10mm. I'm going to snug up the line. All right, now we're going to move up to our other line. I'm going to take out our little plug, and we're going to line up our line. Once the line is in, line up the bolt hole. Snug it up. All right, so now we're going to put our brackets back on. The grommet goes there. And make sure you put the lip of the bracket over the vehicle's frame. Hand tighten first. All right, we are going to use a 13mm socket. You'll snug these up. All right, now we're going to connect our connectors. One on this side. Now we're going to connect this connector. Make sure you put your radiator cap on the new radiator, since it doesn't come with one. Now we're going to replace our upper radiator hose. Alright, so now we are going to put our cover on. Serpentine belt cover. We use a 10mm socket. Snug it up. So we're going to put our intake in. All right, we got one in, two in. That's in. Now we're going to put our grill back together. With our plastic fasteners. So remember to put these in the right spot. These are the only ones that look a little different. We're going to put our lower hose on. Now we're going to put our hose clamp back on. All right, so now we're going to put our cover on. I'm going to start by putting in my bolts. So there's 4 main bolts. There's another one over here, but it's broken. So we're going to use a wire tie. All right, we're going to use a 12mm socket to tighten up these 4 bolts. 3 bolts. Used to be 4. So now we're going to put our grommets back in. And the last one's right here. Now we're going to do the same on the other side. So now we're going to install our reservoir. There's a bracket down here where this goes into. So you're going to rest it in there. And for this, there's no bolts. It just slides in once it's in the bracket down there. It slides in this way. And then push it in. This hooks up here. Okay, so now we're going to fill up our coolant system with the manufacturer's recommended specification. And take your cap off. You can use a funnel or you can use a fancy funnel. So now you're going to fill it up. So you want to fill this up till it doesn't go down anymore. Then at that point you're going to start the vehicle. You're going to let it run till it gets up to temperature. You're going to put on your heat and wait for the thermostat to open. You'll know that happens when the antifreeze gets sucked down, and then you're going to top it off. So now we've run the vehicle, we've topped it off. I'm going to take out the excess coolant, and I'm going to fill up our reservoir. We're going to fill that to the max line. All right, so now we can take this off. Put our cap on. So now you can go take your vehicle for a test drive. Make sure the temperature gauge stays where it belongs. Take a deep breath, because this job is done. Now we are going to place our negative terminal back on the battery. Push it down, snug it up. And once that's snugged up, make sure that this is back on the stud that it came off of. All right, now that we've put our AC condenser in there and hooked up our lines, it's time to take your vehicle to the local repair shop to get your AC charged.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.